Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Please, can you let me know if you can hear me by giving me a wave of your hand? We have been given permission to start and go ahead. Thank you very much to the panelists who are already here. And thanks to the attendees who have also joined in quickly. Thank you all for joining in early. Attendees, if you can hear me, okay, I can see some wave of hands. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir. I'll quickly go ahead and introduce this and then we'll kick off. Thank you all very much for joining Politics 101, the platform community group. This year's platform has been held in a different dimension, and dimension is to take the conversations to another level, where we can actually drill into topics and we can drill into things that have been discussed and said at the main panel. So we've brought in professionals and people in the fields that we believe will help us discuss. And this year we're discussing citizens' involvement in politics and governance. Now, a lot of the speakers this morning have talked about it. They've mentioned it in one way or the other of how citizens need to be involved. So that cannot be overemphasized. And that's why we have chosen the topic for this year to get the citizens, we the citizens, to be more involved, not just in politics, but also in governance. And with regards to that, we have brought in some professionals. So I'll briefly introduce our panelists to you. We have on the panel Mr. Dapo Oyewole. Okay. Mr. Dapo Oyewole is a special advisor on development, planning, and international affairs to the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. He previously served as a special advisor to the Minister of State for Finance in Nigeria, responsible for policy and international cooperation. Prior to this, he served as technical advisor to two ministers of national planning in the presidency of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. He has been a senior consultant to the United Nations, the World Bank, and a few other organizations. And he has also worked in the private sector as Director of Public Sector Development at Palladium International and as Senior Public Sector Advisor at McKinsey & Co. He's also a Yale and Aspen member. Please welcome Mr. Dapo Oyewole. Thank you very much. So he's giving us a nod. Next on the panel, we'll introduce to you is Abiodin Baiyewu. Abiodin is Global Rights' first African Executive Director with core expertise in human rights and governance. Prior, she worked with organizations such as the Negotiation and Conflict Management Group, the O'Neill Institute for Global and National Health Law, the Center for Africa Policy and Peace Strategy. She's the co-chair of the steering committee of the African Coalition and chair of Justice and Empowerment Initiative, and a member of the governing board of the Initiative for Participation and Inclusive Development, and the initiator of the Standing National Roundtable on Business and Human Rights. Welcome, Ms. Baiyewu. Okay, our last speaker isn't here yet, but he will join us shortly. Just want to check that. Okay, we're recording. Beautiful. So we'll go straight to, and our last speaker is Honorable Bitrus Kaze. He will join us very shortly. He had a meeting, which he had to, emergency meeting to attend to. So my first question will go to Abiodin Baiyewu. Earlier on today, we've had quite a few conversations, and His Royal Highness Lamido Sanusi said something about the ministers are currently holding a retreat on appraisal, and looking at civil citizens' rights and our obligations, what is expected of us as citizens. Can you appraise the Nigerian citizens today? Are we participating? Are we doing our part right? Because most times we look at government and ask, are they doing their part right? But today we're looking at ourselves as citizens. Are we doing our part right? Can you appraise us from your own perspective and from your expertise? Thank you.
I'm glad you started with that question, Aderoju. it's three fulcrums. You've got government, you've got country, you've got citizens, and they're different offices. And the office of the citizen is one of the most important in that mix. The question is, are Nigerian citizens fulfilling their roles? I would say no, we're not fulfilling that role as well as we should. But then there's several reasons for that. We don't have a culture of participatory governance. The culture of participatory governance is handed down from generation to generation, and it's also handed down through education on what to do as citizens to be involved in governance. So no, we do not have that culture, and no, we have not been engaging as well as we should. We have not fully occupied the office of the citizen yet.
Okay. So from your experience, can you tell us what is really expected of the citizens? I know you have a very vast experience in the Constitution, which is what we use and operate as a country. So what does the Constitution say is the responsibility of us as citizens?
Well, the Constitution states very clearly in Section 24 what the roles of citizens should be. First, to uphold that Constitution. But the problem is most citizens have no idea what the Nigerian Constitution says at all. I would say most of your audience are people of faith. I would say there's a lot of nitpicking in the Constitution. You take a single subsection and then you run with it without fully getting the spirit behind the Constitution. I always say that the Nigerian Constitution is one of the best laid out constitution on what the duties of government should be. And Section 24 tells you exactly what to do. Uphold that Constitution, ensure that we have a legitimate government. And a legitimate government is a government that fulfills what that Constitution says, particularly in Chapter 2, Chapter 4, and Chapter 3 of that Constitution. So if you want to know what Nigerian citizens should do, go to Section 24 of the Nigerian Constitution. It talks about first that you should pay your taxes as a citizen, abide by the Constitution of the country, respect the ideals and the institutions, the flag, the anthem, the pledge, legitimate authority. And there's an emphasis. It didn't just say instituted authority, it said legitimate authority. Legitimate authority is authority that is fulfilling what the Constitution actually states. It speaks to the power for you to enhance the power, the prestige, and the good name of Nigeria. But then it also reminds you that you must uphold the ethos of Nigeria, which is freedom, equality, and justice. And it's very strange because most Nigerians don't even know that's what our ethos is as citizens. Freedom, equality, justice are the things we're meant to uphold. So if you do not remember anything in the Constitution, you should remember freedom, equality, and justice are the things you should hold. You should also respect the rights of other citizens and ensure that you protect the rights of other citizens, that we be our own brothers' keepers, and to ensure the legitimate interests of others are respected and upheld. And when you talk about the legitimate interests of others, the office that should fulfill the legitimate interests of others is government. And so, which means you should hold government accountable for the fulfillment of the legitimate interests of other Nigerians and their respect for their rights.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Yes, you did. The Constitution actually has a lot for us to hold. How many of us have actually read the Constitution? Let me ask you again from your experience, out of every 10 Nigerians that you've met, how many do you think have actually gone through the Constitution once, at least?
Out of every 10?
Yeah, so what would you say? How many people do you think have read the Constitution, or your experience of meeting people?
Out of every 100. Okay. I would say most people that I know have read the Constitution have read the Constitution because they have a professional role to fulfill. And so in the fulfillment of their role, a lot of them will read the Constitution. But most citizens are innocent of what the Constitution says.
Okay, thank you very much. So we need to read the Constitution, and that's our take home from that, because it actually states our responsibilities and what the law allows us to do as citizens, which is very important. So I'll move to Mr. Dapo Oyewole right now. Good afternoon, Dapo. Thank you for joining us today and for being with us once again. You have been in
Hi,
private
it's a pleasure.
sector. Yes, and we intentionally engaged you in this conversation because you've been in the private sector, and private sector is good life. We have structure, we have good salaries, we work with people of like minds. It's fantastic. Some people will say, why did you decide to go into governance and work with those politicians or those people in government? What led you on that path?
Well, thank you very much for inviting me once again to discuss with you. And let me say happy Independence Day to everybody. As you can see, I am wearing my Proudly Nigeria t-shirt. And it's also symbolic because it's important to let young people out there know that you don't have to be wearing an agbada or a gele or one of those big people clothes to be able to lead. This is a forum for people that's founded by people of faith. And we know only too well that Jesus became a leader in his 20s, right? And his entire ministry was just up to 33 years old, and it's still impacting and inspiring all of us today. So really my t-shirt is in solidarity, but to also encourage young people out there that this space of leadership is yours, and you don't need my gray hair or my agbada to wear it. Also, I'd like to say very hello to my very good friend, Abiodin Baiyewu, and this connects with how I'm going to answer your question. What is interesting, and you probably did not know, is that Abiodin and I went to the same primary school, same secondary school, same university. We lived on the same street, and we actually lived opposite one another and saw each other in school every single day. So to have both of us to have emerged from this in different, we've had different lives, but to still be focused on this task of nation building tells you that there are many young Nigerians who started with this belief right from the beginning and have sustained it till now. Abiodun, it's a pleasure to see you and to connect with you and to listen to you. Now to your question. Likewise, my dear friend, likewise. And thank you for bringing us together. Now to your question about why the move from the private sector to the government. Actually, that is not true. I've actually worked all my life in civil society and in the public sector. And why the real question is, why did I foray into the private sector and then come back? I only went into the private sector in 2017. It's the first time in my 22 years of working experience that I've actually worked in the private sector. I did McKinsey for a while. I did Palladium for a while, and then I came back into the public sector. But the question, why did I move back, is as follows. First of all, when I was in the public sector, it was very, very clear that what we really needed was the savvy, efficiency, and the sort of very effective project management approaches that we would see in the private sector. I'd worked with a series of consultants with different companies, and you could see the structure, the process, and how they always put the very best people on the table, and always how they also praised their performance and ensured that they were able to meet the demands of their clients. Now, in the public sector, your client is the Nigerian people. And why is it that in the public sector, we don't have that same level of efficiency and effectiveness and a strategic, evidence-based, research-centered, data-driven approach that helps us to make the right decisions and helps us to deliver for the people who elected or appointed us to be in these positions at all. And that's why I actually forayed into the private sector to learn how do they do this, and particularly in management consulting. And as you know, McKinsey is one of the best in the world. And in Palladium, which is development sector consulting, which is, Palladium is also one of the largest development consulting firms in the world. So it was all really about learning how do you do it in the private sector. And then my intention was, let's learn that and then bring it back into how we operate and function in the public sector. So to answer your question, I didn't actually leave the private sector into the public sector. I started in civil society. I started in the public sector. I forayed to learn some tricks about how to do things better in the public sector, and I have thus returned.
So you're welcome back, and we're glad that you actually came back. So it's also important that we've seen some efficiencies in the private sector, which you wanted to explore and make sure they also work within the public sector, and it is doable. Thank you very much for that. Biodun, I'll come back to you. With regards to we the citizens, um, it appears in Nigeria today the only way we the citizens know how to express ourselves is protests, rally, and that's the major way we've actually found. And then maybe we rant a bit and we talk a bit on, or quite a lot on social media. How effective has this been? And why do you think it's also important that we also find other ways to actually express ourselves? Are there other ways? Why is it that are these ways effective? And are there other ways we can actually express ourselves as well? Thank you.
Well, we've not been able to measure the efficiency of protests, and they've been the main means of connecting with government in Nigeria. And there are many reasons for this. Governance is very far. It's still very, very far from everyday Nigerians. We've decimated and completely killed the local governance system in this country. And so the closest that a citizen would feel would be a state government or the federal government. And of course, the easiest ways to reach those ones, if you do not know other means of reaching them, would then be to take to the streets. Now, in every civilization, in every country, that's a legitimate way of registering dissent. But we must also have ways and means of registering assent, to say that we agree with things you've done, to also say we would rather have things done this way. But the problem is we've had public office holders who have also developed a culture of not listening to citizens, or of not creating channels for constructive dialogue between citizens and public office holders. I wouldn't say the followers and the led, because then we begin to put ourselves in positions that the Constitution did not originally create to be. We have employed public office holders, and we should be able to hold them accountable. And so far, what we've told ourselves is that elections is the way in which to go. It's just one of the means. There are, just as we have 101 ways of committing suicide, or 101 ways of nonviolent protests, so we have also thousands of ways in which you can connect with government, but then we're yet to develop, like I said earlier, that culture, that connection, that imbibement of this is how decisions are made as a democratic country. And in every democracy, in every country, you choose what your democracy should look like. We need to also to be patient with the Nigerian structure itself. This is the longest in which we've been in a democratic government. Between the year 2000 and now is what we know as government, as a democratic government. And we're just beginning to learn. So you're talking about generations. You're talking about at least 5 generations that are alive right now who do not know what democracy should look like, should taste like, cannot pass that culture on to their children. And that is something that we must begin to do, and we must learn the ropes of how that is done in a democracy.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So there are things we need to learn, and we need to gradually build that culture. And we know that in building culture, it actually takes time and consistency. I know you've been at this for, I think, over 20 years or thereabouts. And that's the power of perseverance. And like Mr. Dapo Oyewole said earlier on, he's also been at this for quite a while. And I think it's a lesson for we, the younger generation, to make sure that we are consistent and we persevere. I think that's very key. I'm glad to have with us Honorable Bitrus Kaze. He's all the way from Plateau State, Jos. He's joined us. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us. I'll briefly read his profile and then ask him a question so that he can also engage. Honorable Bitrus Kaze has served in various elected capacities over the last 20 years, such as elected councillor, SDP, Old Shere Ward, yes, that's Shere Hills, I remember that. Shere Ward, and first deputy speaker, Old Jos South local government from 1991 to 1992 or thereabouts. Secretary, United Nigeria Congress Party, UNCP, Jos East local government 1996 to 1998, Is Director of Coaching GCC Youth Fellowship of 1996 to 2003. Is the PA to the Right Honorable Daniel Dung, member of the 4th National Assembly of PDP, 1999 to 2002. Is the Coordinator JAN Campaign Organization Just East Local Government, 2002 to 2007. Elected honorable member of the 6th and the 7th National Assembly and chairman Plateau Caucus House of Reps from 2007 to 2015.
Yes.
It's usually a refreshing source of personal comfort and national hope to know that Nigeria still has courageous citizens like Honorable Bitrus Kaze, who will make the right calls when the society is drifting and misdirected by people with special interests outside of the vital national interest that drives peaceful coexistence and progress. Nigeria needs a critical mass of 20 Bitrus Kazes. That was a comment made by Professor Joseph in Atlanta, USA. Thank you very much for joining us this evening, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Now, my question to you
Yes.
is, you've been at politics for quite a long time.
Yes.
And you've actually run for office and won your office.
Yes.
What led you to this and how did you achieve that? Can you just tell us briefly, sir?
It's a mixture of factors. When I first joined politics in 1991, it was my community that decided that the best person to serve them was myself. At that time, I was young, 23 or thereabout. I didn't even have money for the forms. They bought the forms, did tax clearance for me, and handed the forms to me. My primaries was conducted in absentia. I won my first election. I wasn't even on ground. Okay, that was my point of entry into politics. Subsequently, I contested some and lost, and then I contested some and won. Like when I contested in 2006 primaries, I won, and then eventually the election into the 6th and subsequently the 7th National Assembly, I won both. In this part of the world, what we call zoning is in part responsible for it. But as a Christian, I believe that everything that happens as ordered by the Lord. And so when the time comes, everything works to add up and make it possible. I do not believe, from my own personal experience, that it is not so much about your wealth. It's not so much about just capacity. Capacity plays a role, wealth plays a role, but everything works to ensure your victory as God has led your life to be.
Beautiful. Thank you very much, sir, for that. So we're hearing that it's not just about your wealth, it's not just about your capacity, it's a mixture of a lot of factors that will help us actually get to positioning, contrary to most of us believe that it's always, we've seen people with wealth who didn't win elections. So I think that alludes to that as well. I'll go over to you, Dapo. You have been in as a special advisor in various capacities to various governments. Why do you think, from your experience within government, why do you think we should get involved as citizens? Why do you think it's so important and so critical for us to get involved?
The answer is very simple, my friend, and welcome, Honorable.
Thank you very much.
Because nature abhors a vacuum, and if you leave that vacuum, then other people will fill it. It is not every time you will find the people of Honorable's character who actually want to enter that space. And I think this goes to the original question you had posed to me when asking me to come on this discussion, which is to help young people to understand how to get into government, how to get to governance and into politics. And the fundamental question really is why? Why do you want to get involved? Really to empower yourself? Is it to enrich yourself? Or do you, like Honorable and many others out there, have a passion and a burden and a commitment to the Nigerian people? I mentioned to you earlier on that I've been doing this for 22 years. Everything I have studied is in line with nation building, national development. This and paid for by myself and hard work. And this is not because, you know, one expects to end up in office, but because we all know that this country of ours, if we do not use our talent, if we do not use our knowledge, if we do not use the gifts that God has given us to help to build it, nobody else will. And if you are educated, the burden for leadership, then people who have negative intentions will fill that space. So it is about destiny, my dear friend. It is about being, understanding your role as an individual who is responsible for helping to shape the destiny of your nation. And if you do not do it, the people that want to destroy the destiny of your nation will do it. So it is really about stepping up. One other quick point about leadership. You know, you also have to think very clearly, very broadly about what leadership means and where. People always think becoming the president, becoming the Senate president, becoming the vice president or the speaker is the highest level of leadership. No, leadership starts from home. Leadership starts from day one. Leadership starts from the little things that you do before you can actually do bigger things. In China, before anybody ends up in Beijing, they will have proven and tested themselves for like 10 or 15 years in the world level, in the village, doing local work before they can even be recognized as having the what it takes to even come and be able to lead in a more senior position. So I think, to answer your question, why should citizens get involved? Well, because your lives, the lives of your children, the lives of your grandchildren are at stake. And if you sit on the sidelines and you fold your arms, then you really cannot complain when other people occupy that space and they use it to destroy our God-given nation, which we all know has huge potential, enormous capacity. And if we get the right people in the right positions, I think we'll begin to see a Nigeria that we're all so much more proud of, and that the world will come to respect and look towards for leadership.
Thank you very much. Very well said. There's a vacuum. There's always a vacuum, and we need to make sure we, as the right people, a lot of speakers at the main session also alluded to that we need to put round pegs in round holes and make sure people do get there. I like what Honorable Kaze said about being his people wanted him to be there. They must have seen certain things in him to actually say, okay, go and represent us. Can you just tell us how were you able to manage giving feedback from your people and what it was about your community and the people who elected you there, and taking that to the Senate when you were in the 6th and 7th Assembly? How did you make that connect? We've heard in one of our conversations we've had it, Mr. That there seems to be a disconnect between a lot of our representatives and the people. So how did you make that connect as a representative of the people? Thank you. Honorable sir. Honorable Kaze, can you hear us?
Yes, lots of network interaction, but I can hear you. You know, my personal history is that I wasn't born in my hometown. My father was a missionary in Goza. And when he came back home, 1988, he was posted close to the village. And I was concerned I was not known in my hometown. And every community activity, I took part in it. So when councillorship came, the people felt that, look, this guy didn't really grow at home, but he has connected with us. He's always identifying with the community, and they took their decisions. In fact, they concluded and did many things before meeting me. Now to the 6th and 7th National Assembly. I think I first joined Facebook in 2007, March or thereabout. And my phone number, my Facebook account has been active since then. I decided, I pledged that I will not change my contact throughout my period of service. And my first SIM card is the one I use to date, the one we've been talking with you about. And then I represent a constituency that is 3-4 hours drive from Abuja, just South, just East Federal constituency. And when I was representing that constituency, there was always one security development or the other that required my attention. In a week, I could drive from Abuja three days in a week Drive that time, we will take plenary in the morning of Tuesday, and then in the afternoon of Wednesday from 2 o'clock. Then by Thursday, we take plenary 10 o'clock. So I would come from Jos on Monday, no, on Sunday, then join plenary by 10. By 2 o'clock on Monday, I'm in Jos. Then I connect with the people. By 2 o'clock on Tuesday, I'm in the floor of the house. You know, so I never allowed anything to come in between me and the people. I didn't hide my face. I lived with the people. I connected with the people. I was always there when there was trouble, when there is peace, when there's something to celebrate, I was there. When there is danger, I was there. When there's an issue that affected my people, I never pretended about it. I made sure my voice was out on the floor. And the people just appreciate that. So, I mean, sometimes when you are blessed to get into office and you think staying away from the people is the best way, it is not, because you have taken a position of responsibility that belongs to them. The best way to treat them is not to escape with it.
Beautiful. Thank you very well. Thank you very much, and very well said. I think that's a lesson for us all who are listening, that when we're electing officials to go into public office, we should make sure that people who are around us, who live around us, who dwell amongst us, not people who live far away from us, who don't understand what's going on with us.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
a lot of people have talked of partial, maybe having a part-time legislature. But it's important that even without a part-time legislature, we've seen someone here, and it's doable. That's one thing that's very important
It's
and key
doable,
for us here.
definitely. Yes.
You can achieve it. From what he said, he would go, he would come back. And
Exactly.
even when you can't physically do it at that point, you have your office in that area within
Exactly.
your constituency, and
You're
people
right.
can go in there and actually
You're right.
communicate at that
Yeah.
point.
You're right.
So it's very, very important that we actually continue to connect. And when we're electing people and into government offices, we ensure that these are people who will connect with us and remain in line with us. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Christopher Kolade talked about this morning. He talked about the system depends on the people that are running it. He says there's a lot of emphasis on politics and not on governance. He also talked about we the stakeholders are part of the blame, which Biodun gave us a very, very low score mark as citizens, that we're not doing we're not carrying out our responsibilities as much as we should. We can do better. One of the reasons, just to the attendees, that we've actually brought Honorable Bitrus Kaze and Mr. Dapo Oyewole is to let us know that the Honorable has gone into elected office, and people need to go into elected office. We can't all run away from it, and we can't shy away from it. So we need people who will go in and take the bull by the horn. And has expressed to us that it is doable. You just need to live amongst your people, be amongst your people. Your people will believe in you. There will be obstacles, which I'll later on ask him of some of the obstacles he went through, so that he will share with us, because we know that when you want to build a house, the Bible says you need to count the cost. So part of the cost for him was having to travel back and forth from his constituency back to the House of Assembly for the plenary sessions, and then he keeps moving back and forth. But those are part of the costs. And you can tell that he was focused on what he was appointed to do by the people. We've also brought Mr. Dapo Oyewole to help us know that, yes, you can work in private sector. You can go back into governance. You may not go back through elected office, but then there's a part to also play. So it's a good blend of both that we need. And in all of this, we need the right people. We need round pegs in round holes. And we also need people like Baiyewu to tell us when we're actually keeping and things we need to do, who understand the Constitution and what we're to do and what we're not to do, because that's also very, very important for each and every one of us to partake of. Now, the main question of the day, which we also which we'll go into now, is how do we get involved? A lot of people think of very grandiose ideas of how to get involved, and in that process, we die at the foot of the grandiose ideas. You know, when you think about it, oh, we're going to go and protest somewhere, then you have to drive somewhere, you have to do this, you have to do that. But I believe there are things we can do every day from where we sit. So I'll go around all our panelists and ask us, how can we get involved in not just politics, not just the elections, not just putting our candidate forward, But in governance as well, the everyday running of the government, we all part of it. How can we get involved? Apart from just the how, also talk about the attitude with which we should get involved in this. So I'll start from you, Biodun. Please go ahead. How can we get involved, and what attitude should we take in the process of getting involved? Thank you.
I think I'll start with the attitude. I think that the attitude you need is that I matter and what I do matters. And that I am able to have impact, however little, and that contributes to the complete all of what we're talking about in nation building. But I also think, and when you think about Honorable Kaze's antecedent, you would see that that's where it started from the I matter and what I do matters. If it impacts just 2 people in my community, it matters. And from then on, it built and took him into the realms of politics. But I think that in Nigeria, there's an overemphasis on politics. I'd like to think of what we do as public life, so that you've got, well, Dapo says that now he's in government, but then I always see Dapo is still with civil society, is still into nation building. But it is about public life, and that there are entry points at every turn into public life. A few years ago, I plopped into what Holy Hill was doing here in Abuja, where they were taking on coordinating public teachers for public schools in Abuja, because there was a deficit of teachers in public schools in Abuja. And I thought to myself then, I'm sacrificing 3 hours a week to teach children literature, to teach them English, and to teach them, basic subjects. And you think to yourself, does that change anything in my country? It does. In that class were people that I believe will be the next minister of education in this country and would learn from that antecedent. In your community, there are children who are unable to go to school. It's either you're sending them to school, you're holding government accountable for not creating a system, a fail-safe system by which children can go to school. Now, if it's too big for you, that's when you need others, and you need to begin to talk to others to begin to paint a picture, a vision of the Nigeria that you want, and others will fall in line. Now, not everyone is able to paint a picture or draw up or be a dreamer, be a Joseph. I naturally dream. So I'm one of those people who will dream up and say, let's do it this way, and we all gravitate that way. But if someone comes up with a vision that is clear, that is simple enough for you to latch onto, that you see builds this nation, sign up and join up with them. You can sign up with an NGO, for example, to work with them. You can work with people like Honorable Kaze, ensuring that we're able to deliver public goods to the most vulnerable of our own people. You can't hold the government accountable, even from your Facebook, your Twitter handle. You can, in your own little space, in your own little way, be part of public life, not politics, public life in Nigeria. And part of public life, of course, would be that all politics is local and that we should hold public office holders accountable.
Thank you very much. I like to take notes as well. There are many entry points for us. That's one thing you said. And start from a point of you matter, and what you do actually matters as well. So that ensures that you're also following the right path, as well as the people that you're also influencing. Honorable Kaze, sir, how can we get involved? How can we help people like you who are in government and help you to do it better?
I like to treat this question strictly from a politician's viewpoint. There are definite entry points into politics. Every one of us comes from one polling unit, electoral ward, or electoral constituency, other, all over the country. And the constitution is that every political party should have a given spread. And that given spread should actually be across the country. And so if you want to be involved you cannot be involved in politics by staying out. There are meetings at the ward, there are councillors, there are state assembly members, and there are House of Reps and national, at all levels, there are people holding office that are supposed to account to their people. You Nigerians, Christians, need to understand. Every time I teach in the church and they ask me this question, I always ask the people, how many of you know where the PDP office is in your ward? How many of you know where the APC office is in your ward? That is where they cook the cookables. The evil that is plotted at the ward level is from the ward office. If you don't participate, if you just allow any junk, any Tom, Dick, and Harry to participate, the product of the process, political process in that world will be any Tom, Dick, or Harry. Now, that is at that level. When you have elected representatives, there are points they must come and account to the people. You rightly mentioned, for example, that if you are a House of Assembly member or a House of Reps or any legislator, you should have a constituency office. And in my own case, I used to have one at the headquarters, but I opened a sub-office in the other local government because it is a very rural local government. That's a point of connect. Christian youth groups, Christian women groups, pastors, elders, community leaders can move to such offices or the residences of our politicians and ask them questions. When you don't meet them at home, leave letters, write long memos and live with them. Look, you have been in this office for 1 year, we have seen nothing. Look, they are talking about Kama laws and we have not heard your voice. They are talking about water bill and you have said nothing. Even if to issue a public statement, you have done nothing. And you keep them to account. Maybe finally, this should wake us up. Don't, on the day of election, tell us that you are not going to vote. After all, what will it add up to? Like our sister rightly said, she took 3 hours to teach. What will that add? It adds something definitely. We can win election with 1 vote. And once that vote is missing, what is required for evil to thrive is for good men to do nothing. And so if every good man sleeps at home, our country becomes the evil that it is, because you, the good people, have left the space to us. And guess what politicians want? When the people become gullible and they don't know anything that is happening, evil thrives in politics because good men have stayed away.
I feel like bursting into applause.
Yes, we can.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
When good men sleep, evil thrives.
Exactly.
So we all have a responsibility. Whenever we complain that there's evil or non-performance or lack of competency, it's because somewhere, and I dare say you and I are actually sleeping and not doing what we need to do. He told us at the ward level we can get involved. And when you have your representatives, I dare to ask, we have about, it's something people on the group now, how many of us know where our ward offices are? Our representatives, do you know where their offices are? Do you write to them? Do you communicate with them? They'll tell us that communication is 2 ways. So if they're not communicating with us, are you communicating with them? It's also a process of consistency, and you need to also be persistent. I think we need persistence so that we keep at it and don't lose hope. Mr. Dapo, over to you. How can we get involved?
Well, first of all, I could not agree more with the 2 previous speakers, Ms. Baiyewu and Honorable Kaze. Not only do I agree with them, I'm inspired by them. Our Bible says that without a vision, the people perish. And
Exactly.
The first thing about getting involved is to have a vision. What do you really want to do? And then you look at how. And when I talk about what do you really want to do, so Honorable Kaze has gone for elected office several times. And you
Yes.
can see he connects with the people, he understands them, he's passionate about him. All that he described to you are huge sacrifices. And some of the sacrifices at his own personal cost, as opposed to what many people think, that once you become a politician, you have bags of Ghana must go in your boot every day. So the first thing really is, what is your vision? And that vision doesn't need to start from the top. It starts at the, like you said, at the very local government level, or even just as a private citizen like Abiodin, who's taking the initiative to teach children. So have your vision and let it be clear. And it has to be modest, because as you come closer to power, the danger of arrogance, the danger of invincibility, the danger of being surrounded by so many sycophants that tell you how wonderful you are, how great you are, actually is one of the things that could really destroy not just your reputation, but your ability to serve your people. So have a clear sense. I used to be a Boy Scout, I used to be a Navy cadet, and one of the things you are trained to do is to be prepared. So the next question is, if you want to serve, if you want to lead, are you prepared to lead? Have you trained yourself? Have you educated yourself? Have you learned from mentors, people like Honorable Kaze and the others who have more experience than you? If you look behind me, you can see all the certificates here. They're not there to boast. They're there to remind me of the sacrifices I have made with my own money to educate and equip myself to fulfill the vision that I had right from when I was about age 17. Right? And that when you see some people emerging, they're really making an impact. You think they started yesterday. They started a long time ago, preparing, training, equipping. Now, the third component is networking. The reality is that the Bible tells you in a multitude of counsel, you cannot go wrong. And now, you can read as much as you want and get as many degrees as you like, but you also need to learn from those with experience. Those who have been at the battlefield, on the front lines, they are the ones also that can groom you, that can teach you things you will never learn at Harvard, LSE, or wherever the case may be. And the thing about the political space is that it is a space of nod and winks and body language. And if you don't have seasoned people who educate you, groom you, hold your hand, and prepare you, you may never really be able, even if you get into that office, and of course, you only have to look into history, there are many people who, perchance, have got into the high political office, and they've completely messed it up because they were not prepared, they were not trained, they were not groomed, they were not mentored. So when leadership was thrust upon them, it fell in between their laps. So network, learn, not just from the older people, also from the younger people. I told you I'm wearing a t-shirt right now because right now, I strongly believe that even we older ones, I'm in my mid-40s, have so much to learn from the younger ones because this future is theirs. And the world today, the world they want to have, the world they want to live in, can be slightly different from the ones we were trained to aspire to. So you need to be able to connect not just with the older people and the younger people. You need to connect with everyone, not only the wealthy, not just the political elite, not just the educated. For you to lead, you need to be able to connect with all sectors and all demographics of your society and to understand what they need. Last point is about demonstrating value. You know, a lot of people say to me, Dapo, this is your third political appointment. You must have a political godfather somewhere. Well, yes, it's true. I have a father and his name is called God, but he's up in heaven and not here on earth. The truth of the matter is, you don't have to have a political godfather. I'm a living testimony of that. But what you must have is the ability to demonstrate value. You must be bringing something to the table. I say this all the time. The minute you make government your business, then you have a problem. You know, really what you need to be doing is creating yourself and empowering yourself to give, not necessarily to take. And I think that if you're able to demonstrate value, either through your technical skills, either because whatever skills you have. For me, for example, I do not foresee going into electoral politics because just like in the Bible, in the Bible, yes, the house of God has different members. You have different people doing different things. You need to know what your calling, your political calling is. Exactly. I am a technocrat. People like Honorable Kaze have the anointing to go for an election and win. Well, I am the architect that helps to design what happens after you win. I'm the foreman that helps you to build the mechanism for delivering on the promises that you made to your people. So you need to know where you fit in and where you add the best value. And I think the last thing I would say is, you know, political leadership is not the only space for leadership. And the best leaders are the ones who start within civil society, in the shadows, just helping ordinary people, going the extra mile just to add value to other people's, even in their estate, in their community, in their village. This is where it starts from. And honestly, this will be my last, my parting shot. If the reason why you go into governance, politics, or policy is not with an authentic, credible desire, burden, and calling to serve people, eventually you will fail and you will falter. Because that level of inauthenticity, you cannot sustain for that long. But if it is really authentically about serving the people, honestly, like Honorable said, some way, somehow, the Lord who makes things work out for good for those whom he calls and work according to his purpose, he will make you work out to your purpose. So when I say that, how do you prepare and how should citizens engage? The first thing I really think is a self-assessment of your why, your what, and your when, and then the clarity will emerge on the how and how you actually become an active citizen or an active leader or an active political actor or an active technocrat who helps to build your nation for the benefit of posterity.
Thank you very much. Very well said. We need to groom ourselves, demonstrate value, join civil societies, look at your network. You said a lot. I'd like to acknowledge some of the attendees and some of the comments they've been made. Great take-home points said by Jeremiah. Tony Alade says, well done, Mr. Dapo. Demonstrate value. Jeremiah says, develop capacity to give. Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. Thank you, Jeremiah. There's another comment by Taiwo Akishe. It says, thanks, Honorable Kaze. That has to new engaging words. For those of us in Lagos, why not put up a post on Facebook on the venue, explore Zoom for those with limited access, different things that you can do. It says, thanks, sir, for your advices. Getting involved at what level changes the narrative. Says, God bless you, Honorable Bitrus. Wonderful submission. We can no longer stand on the fence. So what we have been doing is actually impacting people. It said, evil thrives in politics because good men sleep. How can citizens affect the change in the 1999 Constitution? So I'll take that question quickly to Abiodin, just to quickly tell us on that. There's a question for you. How can citizens affect the change in the 1999 Constitution?
Well, one of the first things you can do about affecting change in the 1999 Constitution, of course, is to send a memo to the National Assembly asking for it to be changed. And there are other ways in which to do it. For example, you can also go to court challenging some of the sections of the Constitution. As I pointed out in the conversation I had with your group a few months back, that as wonderful as I think the Constitution is, there are parts of the Constitution that really do not belong to the Nigerian dream. And yes, you can't challenge them in the courts of law. You can also begin to educate people, advocacy, begin to educate other people, educate even your representative at the State House of Assembly or the National Assembly on why that needs to be changed. And then you start the national discussion towards it. There are other ways of doing it. You can also reach out on social media, contemporary media. There are people who every single day would call into their local radio station to say, this is what I think we should do about Nigeria, or this is what the problem is with Nigeria. And they get heard every single day. And you can be one of those people. And so, yes, it's very possible that a single citizen can begin the process of changing certain parts of the Constitution if they want to.
Beautiful. You can get involved, write to your representatives, communicate with them, get a few people together to join you in this process. And even if you have to go it alone, you can start at that. We don't always have to wait for people to join us. You can always go it alone with God on your side. God's the Father, who is our Godfather.
Always people, though.
Yes, we can always do it, and we can start something. It's very, very important for us to actually start. But first of all, must say to us, read the Constitution first. Most of us have not read it, so to change it, we must read it. We'll study other constitutions, we'll study our constitution, and to break it down, you can actually take a portion of the Constitution and start off with that. You can break it into bits. You take some parts, have some friends who take some other parts of the Constitution, and together we can begin to work on the Constitution together and make sure it changes. Abraham says one of the fundamental issues in politics in Nigeria is that we remain partisan even after election. This partisanship, sorry, I just need to repeat that, went up. It says this partisanship has blinded the minds of many and prevented us from being objective and hold public office holders accountable. We should be able to call a spade regardless of the political affiliations. Nigeria should be priority and not the political parties. During elections, political affiliations would usually play its role, but after elections, our goal should be Nigeria and not political propaganda. Very well said. Thank you very much for that. Before I ask for your parting words to we the Nigerian people, I'll just share a few experiences of my own of how I've actually engaged the government as well. Getting into my own business in 2009, several things I encountered in running my business. One of them was going into the tax office to pay my tax, and the taxman was shocked that there is a Nigerian who would walk into tax office to come and volunteer to pay tax. I tried to pay my tax. I did at that point. Quite a lot of money too, from the little money I had earned, which was very upsetting. And I realized that the tax laws which we had, the payee tax laws, were outdated at that point. So one of the things I did was to write to Ifweko Omoigwe, who was the head of the FIRS at that point in time. And I asked her, what is happening? These laws are outdated. What are you doing about it? A lot of us think they won't respond, but she did respond. And she told me that they had sent 9 bills to the House of Assembly for rectification. And one of them was the payee law, that it needed to be changed. Once she gave me that information, I followed up and I wrote to my representatives at that point in time. I wrote to Mrs. Tinumbu, I wrote to Biamila, and I also wrote to, I've forgotten his name, he's left now. I wrote to them and I asked them, what are we doing about this? That when you have the tax laws in place, people are not paying excessive taxes, and then they have more money to hold in their hands and they have more spending power. I just say, and this is real, I got a response from Honorable Bajabi Amila. I didn't get just one response from him because I sent reminders to him. I have the emails if anybody wants to look at them. I sent emails to him, and not once, not twice on issues, and he did respond to me. So don't let us all operate under the assumption that they will not respond.
Exactly.
They do respond.
Exactly.
Another instance was I wrote to Ifweko Omoigwe as well. There was the time the tax office I was meant to be paying to was in K2, but they moved their office to Ikorodu, and it is almost like an hour away from where I stay. So I wrote to her and said, since the office has moved to Ikorodu, it's difficult for us to pay our taxes and go and remit our VAT, which we have to do then physically. And she responded to me at that point in time that they would look into it. And shortly afterwards, it was reshuffled, and then I could pay my tax closer to where I lived. When Governor Fashola was in government as well, I also wrote to him several times. During the Ebola crisis, I wrote to him. When we had the new, okay, there was an instance where the law says we need to have vehicle inspection documentation from the VIO office. And I had asked them, where is it stated in the law that we need to do this, and what does it take? And at that point in time, I wrote to Governor Fashola, got a response from him, followed up, but then it died out. And then I was arrested on the road. And when I was arrested, I wrote back to him and I said, I told you to tell me where it is written and where are the places I can do this and get my, what's the name of the documentation they call it now? Your roadworthiness. Yes, that's it. Roadworthiness. And he wrote back to me. And at that point in time, he said it was in Lagos state law. I went to the High Court in Ikeja. Funny enough, there was a lady that was there. I didn't know her from anywhere. She sells books. She volunteered to go to the library, to meet the librarian, to get the law for me. And she did, and she gave me a copy. And I wrote back to my governor that the law says that this thing should be published. Where is it published? And he sent me the number, the commissioner of, I think was the transport, then now contacted me and said it's published, but it wasn't in e-documentation. It wasn't online. And I said it should be online. But a lot of times when you check some government websites, all you see is penalty, 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 penalty. Nobody tells you the process of how to do these things. And I remember ending up at the VIO, the man in charge of VIO. I ended up at his office. The man who arrested me was there. He said, "Madam, you got here?" I said, "Yes, I got here." And I spoke to his boss and I said, "I'm willing to help you put it online. Give me a soft copy. I'll do it as my citizen's responsibility and help you put it in a position where everybody can access." "How much is it?" 1,000 naira. I said, "That's recharge card money or money we used to drink Coke in 1 week." If you if you make it public, people will do what they are meant to do. But when you hide the information, you hide all these things, there's no avenue for us to do this. These are just one of the many ways I have engaged government from where I'm sitting. Some of it I had to get up and go further from where I was sitting. Even payback, I've engaged payback in the recent government. They say if you have a problem, you're coming out of the airport, they have a stand. I took their email, I sent to them, and they responded to me. I don't have any special hair. It's not this hair that is making them respond to me. It's the fact that they do respond. And I think we need to give them a benefit of a doubt that people do respond in government. But we need to try it out. Sometimes they don't respond immediately, but keep at it. Be consistent and continue. So I'll ask our panelists for your last word to the Nigerian people on how we need to get involved, and just give us a parting word as we go. So I'll start ladies first. Ms. Abiodin Baiyewu. Thank you.
I'd say start from where you are, start from things you care about. I would also say that we have too few people who truly care about Nigeria in public service, and that would include the civil service, and that you need to get into civil service. People complain a lot about how much civil servants earn, but if you really want to make a change in this country, that is one place we can make a change right now. I would also say that, just like Aderoju has said, that several ways in which you can engage public life. Now, she didn't engage politics. What she did was engage public life, that you can engage public life. There are those entrants. There's a young boy, and I'd like to talk about that as my final plug. There's a young boy in Kano right now who's facing 10 years in jail for blasphemy. He's 13. And very few people are talking about it. I've written the Attorney General of the Federation, I've written the National Human Rights Commission, and I'm making as much noise as I can about it because I care enough about it. If you care enough about things like that, do it. Why? Because what you do matter, because you matter in the entire story that is Nigeria. You have inherited a country. You must hand over a country to those after you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Honorable Bitrus Kaze, your last
Yes.
words for the Nigerian citizens.
Mine is this: when you elect politicians into office, don't make them demigods. Don't tell them what they are not. Immediately politicians come, especially into church, they begin to heap praises on them. They begin to tell them they have succeeded, even when they are not yet half term into office. You know, people love to make politicians feel all right. No, be honest. Tell them what they have done right and give them credit for it. But what they have not done right, please tell them. I listened to you very carefully. The thing is that you have participated at every point. You write, whether they get response to you or not, you write. Many times what we see in this part of the world is that people just give it out to the politicians. They believe that they control everything. And unless you cajole them, unless you yield to them, you are not going to get anything. Time has come for Nigerians to show politicians that we made them. It's not the politicians that made, we made them. And use every public avenue to ask for accountability. They may be away when it is not yet midterm or when the tenure is not yet fast spent. But during elections, remind them of the promises they made, remind them that they were absent when they were first voted, remind them that they shut out their gates. Speak truth to them. Nothing heals, nothing saves, nothing heals the land like speaking truth to people in power. It's uncomfortable, it can be costly, but that is the only way we can help this land.
Thank you very much. Very well said. Mr. Oyewole, final word, sir. You're muted. Okay.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you to my co-panelists. I think I endorse every single thing that they both said. And it was remarkable listening to your story, Aderoju. If there is any sign or any example of active, involved, engaged citizenship, this is exactly the story you have narrated is an example for everybody to follow. And I do pray and hope that not only will you continue to do that, but that you can help to inspire other people to follow suit. I'm also delighted that my boss, Right Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila, is a good example that you used about someone that responded to you. It also connects to your question earlier on about why did I go into that space? Because it's very clear that someone who has a vision and who's also very, very responsive, as you've seen with what has happened with Ghana, with China, the Chinese situation we had during COVID, etc. Now, in terms of parting words, I think the two previous panelists have touched on all the key points. But I'd like to mention two key things. One is, about 3-4 years ago, I gave a TED talk called We Are Government, or Government as an Orchestra. And you see, the reason why I say government is an orchestra is that sometimes you see someone in front with a baton waving, and you think that person is the most powerful person, but that person plays no instrument whatsoever. And that could be your president in some instances. But you see, what matters is the fact that everybody else in the orchestra, the person on the trombone, the one on the piano or violin, every tone, every tenor matters in creating that symphony. So the first parting point is that I want to say to everybody, no matter what sector you are in, you are all part of our governance symphony. Every chord you strike, every tenor matters. And you should see that whether yours is loud, whether it's low, it doesn't really matter. What matters is that you're involved, you're engaged, and you're part of shaping that destiny for your nation. But there's an important point I need to make, my dear friends. And one is the fact that we've been saying you don't have good people in politics, you don't have good people in government. Well, when you find them, encourage them. You have no idea the pressure, the pressure people like Honorable Kaze and even my little small self have in terms of the skepticism that people have towards you. The minute you say you work for government, you will get insults. People just immediately think you're a criminal, you're corrupt, or at times your character is maligned. And it does not matter if you're actually doing the right thing. So when you find good people in government, encourage them. They also need that encouragement for them to know that even though they're swimming against the tide, that they're heading in the right direction. One last point, which, is share what you know. You see, sometimes you may think you are the Messiah, but you are not the Messiah. You were actually just called to empower and enable the Messiah. When John the Baptist came, everybody thought he was, well, not everybody, some people thought he was the one. But when he met Jesus, he knew that the real Messiah had come. And the reality is that what John the Baptist has been doing all along was preparing the space for Jesus to lead. So for many of us who are doing what we're doing, yes, some people say, oh, it sounds like you could be the president, oh, it sounds like you could run for office. Sometimes your job is to create an enabling environment for others to thrive, for others to grow. So bear in mind, sometimes you may not be the fire, but you might be the lighter that lights the candle. And my last point, ladies and gentlemen, is pray. Pray hard and have faith. Because when you pray, there's some wisdom that you need that will not come from textbooks. They will not come from the mouths of men. They will come from inspiration from God. And if you do not have faith in the promise that he has given you, then when trouble comes, when things are uncertain, when temptation comes your way, you will not know what to do. So having said all the big grammar and all the academic stuff I've said, I am going to end by saying, pray and have faith, and your destiny shall come to pass in Jesus.
Exactly.
Amen. Thank you
Amen.
so much to our panelists. And even like the second verse of our national anthem, O God of creation, direct our noble course. Guide our leaders right, help our youths the truth to know, in love and honesty to grow, living just peace and truth, great lofty heights attain, to build a nation where peace and justice shall attain. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for the things you have contributed. And to we, the citizens, we have an assignment on our hands, that God sparing our lives, if we are here when Nigeria is 70, every one of us will have a story of how we have been active citizens in every single way of our lives. And like we said, in the public lives. And like we've heard, we need to pray and make sure that we have God the Father on our side and listen to him. Happy Independence Day. Enjoy the rest of the week. And from this day, as you step out, let's all be active and let's engage and join hands together to make Nigeria a great nation. Thank you all very much. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you. Thank you.